Hi, I'm Dr. Michael DiTolla, and I'd like to welcome you to the 2014 Patterson Sirona Technology Summit. Our theme today is CAD/CAM for everyone. Now, you might recall that last year, 2013, we also had the same theme, CAD/CAM for everyone, but that was more focused on doctors. That was the meeting where Patterson and Sirona really shook up the CAD/CAM industry by coming in with systems available at 3 different price points, so any dentist could now afford this technology. This year, it's also CAD/CAM for everyone, but it's really more about the patients. It's for everybody in your practice because of some expanded indications that we'll touch on a little bit later. To get started, let me introduce my esteemed panel. To my left is Josh Killian, VP of Digital Technology for Patterson Dental. And Josh, you've spent so much time in dental offices that I'm going to right on the spot make you an honorary dentist, but get anywhere near me with a syringe or a handpiece and I'll kill you. To his left is Dr. Sam Puri, who's the Director of CAD/CAM at Spear Education. He's also the founder of CERECdoctors.com. He's a beta tester for Sirona, one of the rare alpha testers, and the alpha male at this table. Thanks, Sam, for letting us be here. On his left is Dr. James Klim, founder and director of CADstar Private Practice Santa Rosa, California, and creator of such gorgeous aesthetic restorations that the state of California has actually revoked my license because of it. To his left is Dr. Tarun Agarwal, private practice in North Carolina. And Tarun has really shown the way to a lot of us GPs how to integrate Conebeam with CEREC and put those two together for some really powerful clinical solutions for patients. And to his left is my good friend, Mr. Roddy MacLeod, the VP of CAD/CAM for Sirona, who's now over in Germany, overseeing the drive for a lot of the products that you're going to see today, making it more affordable so more dentists can get into this technology and more patients can also take advantage of what it has to offer. And so there's 3 big things today that we're really going to be looking at. It's the release of the CEREC software 4.3, the ability to do really practical, straightforward clinical implantology with it. And also we're going to take a look at CEREC Ortho, something that's going to be available at the end of this year that really does make this type of technology available to almost everybody in your practice. So as we get started, Roddy, it's got to be amazing as somebody who started with this technology back when the machine would simply do inlays and onlays, even before the crown days. It must be amazing to look at it now and see what it can do for doctors and patients.
It is really impressive to see the expansion of the range of indication, whether we're talking about whatever you can do with fixed prosthodontics or whether you talk about implantology below and above the gum line, or whether we talk about, as you said, stepping into the orthodontic space. Our interest at Sirona is to allow the dentist to do as much under their roof as they possibly can, and thereby providing unique and better patient experiences inside the practice. We believe, as Patterson does, that driving the patient experience or improving the patient experience is something that ultimately benefits our customers, the dentist. And so this is a hallmark of our product development. It's a hallmark of our dealer partner, Patterson. This is the kind of thing we want to bring to every dentist in the United States.
And Josh, this is always an amazing week for me to be able to see this, to see 500 Patterson employees who are committed to their dentist success with this technology. It'd be kind of reckless to get involved with the technology like this and not have a support partner like you to support the dentists once they get into it.
Absolutely. And we've made an investment not only in training our salespeople and the support people around it, but also having the technology center in Effingham, because it's one thing to just buy technology, it's another thing to own it and implement it in the practice. And we believe that's the most important piece in having the dentist be successful with it. So this group here, 500 people, training, learning, becoming educated on all the new features and what we can do with Sirona, and we're excited to have them here.
This is a boot camp. You are driving these people. They're in there from 8 to 5. I don't think this pool has ever been empty like this before. So congrats to you for having a workforce that is that dedicated to learning everything. They want to know more than the dentist so they can support them at every turn, and that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Well, Roddy, as we start to look at the 4.3 software, there's a couple of features in there that have me really excited as a lab guy, because I think we're really starting to tap into some of the more powerful features of what digital dentistry can do to improve a dentist's ability to do great clinical dentistry. Why don't you take us through a walk of a couple of those features?
Sure. We're excited too, Mike. And again, the promise of technology is to allow the clinician to do something with the technology that they weren't able to do before. And a perfect example of that is our new scanning technique. So not only is it faster with the 4.3 software, we've also introduced something, what we call scanning hints or acquisition hints right inside the software. So we actually give the clinician an indication when there's insufficient information in the scan, so that right at the time of scanning, they can go in and add some additional information and complete the scan so that the rest of the procedure is going to work smoothly for them. On top of that, we also introduced something which I'm sure you'll appreciate. It can happen from time to time that you start a clinical case in one direction, but you wind up somehow in another direction. And recognizing that not every single case is a chairside case based on, for example, taking the impression and seeing there's not enough reduction, for example, is a classic example. We've built into the software an opportunity for the dentist to actually take that scan and not do the full chairside procedure, but send it directly to their laboratory so that they can pick that case up, and the dentist can work with the patient after the lab works come back and this kind of thing. So there's a sort of plan B and the idea behind it is to build some safety into the entire chairside process, that it's not just one way, and if it doesn't work out well, you're kind of on your own. It's more, how can we allow people to step into the technology in a safe and reliable way and give them options so that they're not really stuck with their patient in the chair?
You're right. There are a lot of times where I start one way and then I end up where I don't know, where I am anymore, and that's called endo for me. And so that's why I don't do as much of it. And this idea of being able to have the software tell the dentist, hey, scan a little more over here, is mind-boggling. There's no polyvinyl on the market that would ever do that. We'd have to send lab employees out and tell people, hey, that's a bad impression, do a little more. I want to see this in person. I want to take a look at this. So let's throw it over to Adam and Clark, who are going to do a live demonstration of the scanning in the CEREC 4.3. Adam, it's yours.
Thanks, guys. I have Dr. Brown here, and he's going to start a scan for us where we can walk through all of these different features that Roddy and Mike were talking about. The first one that you'll notice is the speed of acquisition. It's definitely a lot faster than what we've seen in previous versions of our software. And as we move more towards the anterior, you can see that it picks up incisal edges much better than we ever have in the past, making the entire process more seamless and easy. And hopefully, if Dr. Brown scans less than optimal than he normally would, we'll see some of these acquisition hints pop up as it's processing. What that's going to be is an indicator in red arrows that shows us where we need to fill in those gaps. More importantly, where the software wants you to give it more confidence data so that the end model is much better than you've ever seen before. So as he goes back into the scanning phase, you'll see that those red arrows turn yellow. And what that means is he's adding more data to the mix. And eventually, these yellow arrows, with just a minimum amount of scanning, those will disappear, and then you have your finalized model. And also the other feature, if we could pause there, the other feature that was mentioned previously is the addition of the CEREC Connect icon. And what this does, this was mentioned previously, is that this will allow you in the model phase to transmit this to any dental laboratory that you choose. The reverse of this will also be true in the future, where we have the CEREC Connect software that will allow you to send a bridge case that you want to send to your laboratory. Now you'll be able to export that file into the CEREC software so that you can make a provisional chairside. Back to you guys.
That's pretty amazing. Well, first of all, I like having that bailout button, the plan B, to send it to the lab. I honestly see a future where, I can't say how many years from now, but the majority of restorations will be made by dentists in their office, and the labs are going to function more like a specialist and do difficult cases, whether they're bridges or difficult anterior cases. And so it's nice at the touch of a button to be able to send that off. And I like how Sirona has called it scan hints to not offend the dentist, instead of saying impression blunders or, whatever it could say. Sam, you've had the opportunity to do a lot of scanning with the 4.3 software. Tell me what your impressions are of it.
I think it's a huge step forward. I mean, the OmniCam was a major step forward from the BlueCam. And the BlueCam, as good as it was, when you could see the images in color, just go ahead and scan whatever you put the camera to, it picks up that information. That really changed the way we do CAD/CAM dentistry. And now with the 4.3 software, that entire process has become a whole lot easier. I mean, it's so much easier now to just pick up the camera, scan anywhere you want, knowing that with confidence you're going to pick up the information. And you can actually have your staff do a lot of this stuff. I mean, the best part about this whole process is that you can get your team involved, which frees up the dentist to do other stuff. So as much as I can delegate to team members, I would encourage the doctors to do so, and the 4.3 software allows them to do that.
James, I see you nodding your head. You've had an opportunity to be a beta tester as well. What do you think?
You know, I'm OCD margins.
Mm-hmm.
You can see these like razor blades. It's almost like retina display, and that makes it really safe for us. And as Sam mentioned, you can delegate that to your team and get the same results as if you were doing it yourself, which is pretty nice about this system.
So the models actually look sharper on the screen.
Yeah, it's humbling, though, because you see your preps. But
right.
I become a better dentist with retinal display of my preps.
Exactly, exactly. T-Bone, what do you think about 4.3 in the scanning?
Well, you know, Mike, I always like to bring it back to my team members, because to me, the high-performance practice is always about integrating and utilizing your team. And when my team can come to me and say, we notice a tremendous difference, we can see the difference, that's when I know we have a hit. And so, you know, it's made me super comfortable and super reliable that my team members will get the scan, and I don't have to sit there and watch them and say, hey, I need you to do more here. The software is going to do that for them. And to me, that's an unbelievable feature that I appreciate, my team members appreciate, and certainly my patients appreciate.
And Mike, just to mention on that, the Plan B button that was shown earlier, the ability to go from the chairside software into CEREC Connect, that's a big step, because, you know, CEREC users know that you're going to try to do a lot of your work in-house,
sure,
but you're absolutely going to have your laboratory involved. And so now I can just go ahead and scan and say, you know what, maybe I don't have the reduction that I thought I had. Maybe I want to use a different material that I can't mill chairside. Maybe I want to do gold. Instead of worrying about it and now having to start the procedure over again, let's just send it to the laboratory. So it's very seamless. I love that feature about this software.
Well, speaking of the laboratory, go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just going to say, and in the end, the technology helps direct the dentist to a better outcome, which is ultimately better for the patient experience.
Right.
If they get a more consistent restoration or treatment, in the end, the patient's happy, the practice is happy.
Yeah, and the practice is absolutely going to grow as a result of that. You know, in the laboratory, we see all kinds of things. We see some so-so impressions. All right, we see a lot of them. But in terms of preparations, we also see mistakes that are made, and one of the more common ones is undercuts. Roddy, I was really surprised to see that actually 4.3 has something that takes into account dentists who might undercut a preparation.
Exactly, and it does happen from time to time, as we know, and sometimes it's even deliberate. The point is, when you use a video camera, one of the interesting features is that it actually picks up every single bit of information of the tooth. And so if there's an undercut present, it's now inside the design, and then you kind of have to manage it from a restorative perspective. Until now, I mean, the 4.3 software has a feature in it that allows the dentist to choose, do they want to automatically block that out in the software, and the software will run forward with that, or do they want to manage it clinically by milling out the undercut and managing it in the mouth? They have the option to go one way or the other, but this is the first time in chairside dentistry that this option's been available. So we think it's a nice safety feature, so to speak, because sometimes you just don't even know there's an undercut there, to be quite honest. But the software can detect it better than the human eye, let's say.
Yeah, so I think the most important point of all that is with the acquisition hints, it's giving you feedback. With the undercut feature, the software is giving you feedback, which in the end leads to Josh's point, it's better for the patient. As clinicians, the more information we can get, the better care we can take of our patients, and that's the bottom line in all of this.
And it's pretty egotistical to think that we're so great that we don't need any help from a high-tech piece of equipment that can see things from different angles and see it way more objectively than we can with our human eyes.
Well, Mike, the operative word is no remakes.
Yeah, exactly. And I know I've seen a lot of your gorgeous aesthetic work. I know 4.3 also has incisal variation 2.0, where you can really do some trick things to the incisal edges. Tell me a little bit how you're using it.
Yeah, incisal variation, I get excited about that because it's about fingerprinting or making that your tooth look like it's a twin to the one you're trying to match. And it's all in 5 seconds. We can scroll in the fingerprint of that labial surface and have the contours there that can take you years to learn how to master with a handpiece.
And so now, basically, I could, maybe, on a good day, using this software, come close to what you're able to do, because the software is now putting that type of characterization into the incisal edge.
I'll spend 10 minutes with you, and you'll feel great.
Good. Well, actually, that's why I surround myself with lab techs, so I never have to worry about it. Roddy, another part of the 4.3 software that is really starting to open some doors for users is the ability to differentiate between grinding and milling, and it's now going to be able to use not only just the diamond burrs that it traditionally has, but carbide burrs as well. That's to me, mind-boggling, because I always thought of it one way as just grinding. But talk a little about grinding versus milling, because I didn't know a lot about that.
Sure, and maybe we can bring an image up on the screen to illustrate a little bit about what we're talking about. Up above, you see what we've used in the past, which is diamond instruments, which is actually the perfect instrument for grinding away glass ceramics. So anytime there's a hard surface in the milling chamber, like a glass ceramic, actually diamonds are the best solution. Where diamonds become a little bit challenged is when you come to semi-hard materials like acrylics or porous materials like green state zirconia. And there actually we found through our laboratory experience that carbide milling is the best milling strategy for those types of materials. And you can see very clearly from the examples shown here that both in terms of the acrylics, you get a much shinier and more polished surface right out of the milling chamber and more detailed occlusal anatomy. And similarly with the zirconia, you see much finer margins, so you can taper down those margins in the traditional style, and you also get additional and refined occlusal anatomy with those shaping tools. So we see that that's the first time in chairside dentistry where a milling strategy has been in combination with a grinding strategy. And for us, what it means is, and for the clinician, what it means is an expanded range of materials, which offers up new indication possibilities, which is always good.
Well, yeah, I remember, Sam, when what a big deal it was when, for example, it became possible to do EMAX full crowns, you know, with your CEREC unit. It just opened up whole worlds that weren't there before. I kind of feel that same way about the potential of being able to do zirconia with it, that it might bring in another big group of dentists who like it as a cast gold alternative and feel a little better with something stronger on a molar, even if it's not as aesthetic.
Yeah, I agree with that, Mike. And I think it's important to point out that we can currently do zirconia, but the grinding and the milling strategy allows us to do it a little bit better.
Right.
It's better milling, it's more precise, and we don't have that big sprue. And I think it's also important to note that you don't need a new milling unit for this. This is just, you're just changing the burrs, and it's the new software. So it's not new hardware that the doctor has to buy. It's just a modification of their existing hardware that they have.
How many, I see it can be used for temporary materials with the carbides. I'd like to hear from some of the panel about how they're using some of these temporary blocks and what cases you're choosing to temporize.
So, you know, in our office where we're seeing this is the carbide burrs and the optimized milling and grinding patterns. What it's allowing us to do is use materials that mill faster, cleaner, and they're more ready to be placed in the patient's mouth, which minimizes our need to make adjustments to it. So we're using it for surgical guide blocks. We're using it for provisional bridges, provisional implant restorations, and we're using it in our single unit zirconia cases as well, where we're able to mill finer margins to where I don't have the room for heavy chamfer margin or something like that, and we're seeing tremendous results.
Host of whole benefits in the 4.3 that really makes it an important update. And Sam, you said earlier that, well, we always say every update, you know, is great, but it is. And 4.4 is going to be even, you know, better than 4.3 was. Yeah, and I look forward to seeing what they're going to dream up next.
And I think that's testament to the engineers at Sirona, all the R&D that goes into it, and obviously the support of Patterson that goes into supporting the products here in the States. Every software update we get excited about, and rightly so. It gets better and better. It gets easier and easier. You can do more. What started out, you know, close to 30 years ago as, hey, I can do inlays with questionable margins. Today we can do inlays, onlays, veneers, bridges. I know you're going to talk about implants later, surgical guides, milling zirconia, milling different materials. It's a whole host of suite of products that you can do with your CEREC system.
I'm going to talk about it now because you just got me all excited.
Let's do it.
I waited 20 years to place my first implant because I was terrified. You know, I just didn't want to freehand it. I was just afraid that I was going to end up in some anatomic structure where I shouldn't be. And so when surgical guides came out, I finally started doing some implants, but they were really expensive, like almost cost prohibitive. They were kind of difficult to get. And it's amazing to me. You speak about Sirona's technology, their whole approach to clinical implantology, where you can now actually mill your own surgical guides. Roddy, it's amazing. Talk to me a little bit about the approach of Sirona to clinical implantology.
Yeah, exactly, Mike. Well, what we've done is married the digital impression data from our CEREC cameras to the Conebeam data of our Galileo's Conebeam system. And by marrying those two data sets, we're able to see the crown in the final position and thereby design where the implant should go. So the implant is planned not only from, let's say, a surgical perspective, but also from a restorative perspective, kind of optimizing the needs of the clinician. And once that plan is done, we're able to then fabricate a drill guide which allows the dentist to put that implant exactly where it's been planned. And this process is a patented process by Sirona. We're the only company that can produce those drill guides through that process. And it's a unique feature to our system. And we're very excited and proud and happy about it because a lot of clinicians are getting a lot of value out of it.
Yeah,
So
Tarun, how often are you using surgical guides when you place implants?
You know, it's, I think what we're seeing is surgical guides allow us to do minimally invasive surgery. And so we're using surgical guides in 95% of our cases. And back to your point, Michael, that you mentioned earlier, now we have an economical solution that's economic and timely in being able to do this. So we're able to get these done. And what really matters is we're able to get patients taken care of in fewer visits, in a more economical manner, in a more pain-free and safe and predictable outcome.
You know, I know old school dentists who place implants freehand, and they say, oh, you don't need a surgical guide. And they almost like talk down about it as though you're a wimp if you use a surgical guide. Talk a little about why you use so many surgical guides versus just freehanding it.
Well, call me a wimp. It's okay. You know, I use surgical guides for a couple of different reasons, okay? First and foremost, it gives me complete confidence that the implant is going to be in the exact right spot. Okay. Number two, it allows me to know from the beginning what type of restoration I'm going to use, what type of material I'm going to use, and the ease of which I'll be able to restore it. So we're at a stage now where our patients have 2 visits to complete implant treatment. So it's been tremendous. And the other nice thing is you could walk in today, Michael, with a tooth broken off at the gum line on tooth number 9. And with the Sirona technology, I have the ability to plan, place, and restore and give you a provisional in a single visit. I don't have to ship you off here and there. I don't have to totally disrupt my schedule. It is patient focused, and it, in my practice, has tremendously changed the game. It is, without question, the fastest growing segment of our practice, and the part of that it makes me excited. I mean, I'm not excited to do buccal pits and MOD composites. I'm excited to do integrated implantology.
So you're doing a lot of these cases where you're actually extracting the tooth and then placing the implant on the same visit.
Listen, we were talking earlier, there is no need for us to take a tooth out and not give the patient something back today. The technology and materials exist for that to happen.
You know, Mike, I've admired Tarun so much that I've jumped into that game too. And when you think about managing your force dynamics before you ever place an implant, where you can align your implant to the curve of Wilson and speed, directed by your planning in your CEREC software, it's amazing. So if you tell that to your freehand doctors, it's interesting. How can you do that without a guide?
Yeah, Sam, is there any way to argue that freehanding an implant is better than using something as precise as a surgical guide?
Exactly. How would you like your brain surgery done?
Exactly.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't want brain surgery. If I was going to have brain
guided.
If I was going to have brain surgery, I would have it guided. And I think, you know, Mike, the discussion here is it's not just free-handed versus guided. I think you have to look at the whole picture. I mean, when you have a CEREC system, it's not that you're going to extra effort to do it guided. I think that's the proper planning process. So if we take just a step back and look at what the whole technology is, you have the ability to go ahead and plan your restoration, okay? And then from that plan, you have the ability to go ahead and design a surgical guide. You place your implant. from that implant, you're going to place a provisional, you're going to mill out your custom abutment, you're going to mill out your final restoration. So it's the entire process. So the surgical guide is just a part of the entire process, and it's natural. It makes it very easy. And like Tarun said, you know, it's safer. Certainly if there's clinicians out there that have, you know, thousands of implants under their belt, they say, I don't need a surgical guide. But I've also met many surgeons who say, I've placed thousands of implants and now I only use a surgical guide because I can just do it so much better and my chair time is less. What used to take me 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes, I can cut that time significantly because I have a guide and I know exactly where I'm going. I don't have to worry about going into the sinus, going to the nerves or anything like that.
You know, Mike, I think in the end, from a distributor perspective, guided surgery will be what will help drive implant into the mainstream, because it'll open it up to a lot more people that were afraid to do the freehand surgery. So for us, it's a significant part of our strategy and how we're helping grow dentistry. And, you know, tying it back to the software and the platform, I think about why we have a partnership with Sirona as Patterson. What's our faith in what you guys bring to the market every year and innovation. And not only is it a big investment for the dentist to make in the machine, whether it's the CEREC or a Conebeam, but you're investing in the platform and the evolution of the software that you're going to get each year. So it's not, I bought one thing, I hope I have to bolt on something else to do it later. It's, I'm getting in and I have a foundation that's going to grow with me in my practice as I come along. And to hear T-Bone's story or James, that's the same thing. They invested in one piece and it opened a door to something else, and they're able to leverage those things together and not have to start from ground zero or operate in a silo every time they work on a clinical procedure.
I think if you're a clinician and whether you're placing implants surgically, you're restoring implants or restoring them, or doing the entire process, the CEREC is going to play a role into that entire integration. I was mentioning to you guys previously that, you know, we have periodontists that are taking CEREC courses now. They're learning how to fabricate abutments so that once they place the implant guided, they can actually fabricate a custom abutment, a custom healing restoration, maybe you know, any part of that restorative aspect, and give that to their doctors, to their referring doctors. What that does for the referring doctors, it decreases their costs, it decreases the experience that they need, because we know there's a lot of clinicians out there that are afraid to do implants, and this just makes the whole process very easy and safe to enter.
Yeah, there's been numerous different implant companies over the last couple decades trying to be the ones to bring GPs into the fold, but nobody's found that kind of magic solution for getting somebody comfortable with, you know, placing their first implant. No one's really been able to do it, and I think this is it. I mean, this really looks to me like it's it, with being able to generate this and plan it so far in advance and really take care of almost every contingency and be able to produce these on your own. I think that that Sirona and Patterson are really on to something here, and I say this is where I put my money on who's going to get through to the GPs.
No, I think that's a huge part of it, Mike. And, you know, T-Bone talks about when he started doing implants, he actually has a better relationship with his specialist through it. It's not that he alienated or moved away from him. He's now re-engaged with that specialist and how they work together. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
You know, it's and that's one of the fears that as general dentists we have often is, oh, well, I have such a great relationship with my specialist. I don't want to alienate them. I don't want to be left alone if I do have mistakes. And what I've experienced and what I know everybody here has experienced is our relationship with our specialist is stronger. It's more integrated and it's more deeply woven, and that expands our capabilities, that expands the patient outcomes, and that creates a seamless process for the patient. And that's what we've seen in our practice. When I ask our patients, you know, why do you choose our practice? They said, because it's a seamless process. I can come here, and whether you do it from start to finish or whether I do need the advanced capabilities of a surgeon, you're going to be conducting that orchestra and you're going to orchestrate my treatment from start to finish. And patients are looking for that. And I commend Sirona for giving us a product that takes us from A to Z. I mean, implantology is A to Z with Sirona, from planning to guide to provisional to abutment to final restoration. We've got a solution, and it's been tremendous.
You know, patients feel that synergy. It's part of building that expertise within your dental community. I know since I've integrated Conebeam in my practice, I use it as a basis for my new patient exam, and it blows people away in a positive way. So you look at yourself differently, and when you look at yourself differently, you project yourself differently to your patient base. It's a way to build your self-esteem and your practice and your brand in your dental community. It's been huge. You know, and this is after 30 years of practicing. For me, I feel like I'm hitting a second puberty, and I kind of like it.
Is that what that smell is?
Exactly.
I think we've got to all recognize the fact that when you're getting into implants, it's not it is a surgery, and that's what scares so many doctors. But just like the acquisition hints from before, blocking out the undercuts from before, the software gives you information, and as a clinician, the more information I have, the better I can do with taking care of my patients.
Right.
So having the ability to plan out the surgery properly, having the ability to work with a specialist in those cases that is appropriate. And it's absolutely appropriate to work with specialists if your skill level is not to the point where you can comfortably place the implant. But you have a lot of information from the Conebeam scan, from the CEREC scan, and it allows you to provide better care for your patients.
Right.
Mike, I think one of the things I pull out of this discussion is what we see happening in the market, which is dentists yearn to do more.
Yes.
Dentists are yearning to be more and to help their patients in ways that they weren't able to do in the past. And technology is the very thing that's needed to bridge that gap. And what we've seen with the evolution of CEREC over time, and we mentioned a bit earlier, from inlays and onlays to now, we spent the last 10 minutes talking about implantology with CEREC. Nobody would have thought about that a few years ago, but what we've done in between is made sure that step by step we've expanded the ranges of indication for the technology, but also provided safe entry points for each dentist to get into the technology so that they see that it's not a risk today to get into CAD/CAM technology. Rather, the risk is on the other side. The risk is that patients become overly aware of all these phenomenal services that are being provided and start to wonder why it's not happening at their dentist. And
right.
If there's a risk in the system, that's where it is. So we want everybody, and this is the CAD/CAM for Everyone theme, we want everybody to jump into the technology, get started with it at whatever level you're comfortable, whether it's above the gum or whether it's below and above the gum. Really jump into that stuff, start providing the services that your patients are yearning for, that you want to give them, and really evolve the practice. And we're excited about that.
But the risk is not only on that end of things, but the risk for clinicians is, hey, what technology do I buy? There's a lot of choices out there, and I think the relationship between Patterson and Sirona is not to be looked upon lightly, with so many people to support, with all the research and development that goes on. This is a technology that you can purchase, and you know that you don't have a lot of risk because the company's not going to go out of business anytime soon. You spend all this money, and all of a sudden the company changes their name, or they're someone else, and all of a sudden you're left holding the bag. Like, what do I now do with all this expensive technology?
Exactly. Well, let's take a look at a little demo real quick, Sam.
Absolutely.
Let's look at the abutment design. I know we've got Adam and Clark ready to show us that. Adam, take it away.
Thanks, Mike. We have a quick case that Dr. Brown pulled up. I'll have him walk us through the design process of a customized abutment and crown in the CEREC Software 4.3.
In this case, actually, is the tie base has really been a game changer for implant restorative work. This case I did on a patient. The patient came in at 9 o'clock. He left at 10:30 with his final crown. Place a tie base. The tie base is scanned, and what that tie base does is it will virtually place the implant and the tie base with the correct timing. From there, I can end up go ahead and designing a final crown in its final position. If I want to, I can go ahead and mill that right now, and I would have a screw-retained crown. The other option I have is to split the file, and what the software will do is it will automatically split my crown into an abutment and then the crown that goes over top. So now I can mill both. I can mill an abutment, screw retain that, and then cement the crown. Or, like I said, if I want to have it screw retained, I simply unsplit the file, and now I can have a regular screw retained crown altogether.
With that, we'll send it back to you.
Well, thanks, guys. Roddy, he mentioned the tie base. I know there's now an Emax abutment block that's available as well. Talk to me a little bit about what dentists are able to do in their practice with these combination of these two things.
Sure. I mean, we've got an image here I think we can bring up on the screen that helps illustrate the point of the pieces that we've talked about in this discussion. So from the drill guides that are produced from the integrated digital impression scans from the CEREC and the Conebeam scans from the Galileos, the drill guides is an example of what you see there is coming from Sirona to the customer, and they can put the implant in as they planned it. And then on top of that, we have this tie base interface, which allows a metal-to-metal contact with the implant, and then over which we can place either an abutment like the zirconia abutment that's shown there in the middle and a crown over the top of that, or you could make now, with the release of the Emax CAD material you see the one with the hole in it, this is adapted now to that tie base in a very perfect and intimate fit, so that whether you want to make an abutment with that Emax block or whether a full contour crown like the one pictured here and the one that Clark showed earlier, you've got options. So you can go the zirconia route over the tie base, you can go the Emax abutment over the tie base, or you can go to the full contour Emax crown over the tie base. And this gives a lot of flexibility to the clinician.
Tarun, short of the birth of your children, was the introduction of the Emax abutment block the greatest day of your life?
Mike, why do you have to put me in that position? My wife might be watching this.
That's true. I'm sorry.
So it is a game changer, and I want to point out one thing that Roddy mentioned. I want to give a little more emphasis to that, and that is the intimate fit of the tie base to the Emax block. And the other thing is that the tie base provides us a titanium to titanium connection. So no longer are we relying for an aesthetic result, relying on a solid zirconia abutment where the zirconia connection can fracture or wear over time. And the beauty of Emax is the beauty of Emax. It is a beautiful material. So it's not like we're even accepting a compromise to be able to have efficiency. There is no compromise here, and it is. I love my kids more.
James, that's good to hear. That's the right answer. Very good. I can see somebody holding it up off camera telling you that's the right answer. But James, like I mentioned earlier, you're known for your aesthetic restorations. That's certainly what I know you for, although you do more than that. Have you been, kind of pulled into this? Have you started restoring implants and doing this type of stuff with your machine?
I love the control of it. In that sense, I've made my own zirconium abutments for 4 or 5 years now. But what I have found with Emax, it makes it practical chairside in one appointment. In addition to that, we can control our emergence. We can control our sub-cervical area color as far as in the root. And I see the trend in the industry going back to a one-piece abutment crown. And it's really easy to do that with Emax. We have that control. And it's very predictable. So I think we're doing better dentistry in this sense. I've had an interest from oral surgeons in my town because their big problem is bailing out the subgingival cement that's left. And I think that we have a system that's very predictable. It provides, to me, the standard of care today in restorative care. And in addition to that, it's really easy to do.
And I don't think you can overlook the cost. I mean, the cost to do an implant, whether it's an implant abutment and crown or an implant and a full contour screw retained crown, is significantly less with the CEREC system than if you were to send it to the laboratory. I mean, if you're sending a case to a laboratory, most clinicians know, you've got a custom abutment fee of $300, $400, $500, $700 at times. On top of that, you have the cost of the crown. Here, with this particular system, the entire process is less than $200, and that's your abutment, that's your crown, that's the whole thing. So that's a significant cost savings. And so when you look at the ROI of the technology, used to be that we're looking at just, hey, I'm doing a certain number of crowns with the laboratory, and now I can do those crowns chairside. Well, today the ROI is completely different because you have implant abutments, you have surgical guides, you have implant crowns that you can fabricate, which, if I'm a general practice and I'm restoring and sending out for 4 custom abutments a month, that can be up to $2,000. That alone can pay for the cost of the machine, on not including all of the other things that you're going to be able to do with this technology.
Roddy, have you noticed an interest level from the dentists? This is what's starting to bring them to courses and to promotional things where it's not just about the crown anymore. They're looking kind of for these solutions, because we've seen at the lab that the department in our lab that makes implant crowns has grown 65% this year. It's on a tear. So there's tons of implants being done out there, and they're being restored. But doctors, I don't think, know that they're able to do this and go through and do from start to finish this whole technique on their own. Is it bringing them into the fold now?
I think it definitely is, and I think it's evidence of this yearning to do more, that people recognize that in the United States, for example, there's only 2 million implants placed per year over the last few years, which is a ridiculously small number of implants, and certainly not indicative of the amount of work that needs to get done. And I think that GPs in particular understand this. Everybody understands this in the industry, and we need to reduce the hurdles. And there was a great example given by one of our 3D specialists recently about what does this integrated story of CEREC and our Conebeam technology bring to the dentist who wants to place implants. He said it was a little bit like when my friends and I used to play basketball in the backyard, and we wanted to dunk really, really bad. You know, we really wanted to be those guys that could jump up and hit the rim and all this kind of stuff. And after 3 or 4 or 5 days with my friends out in the driveway, my dad looked at us and said, you know, there's no chance those boys are ever going to actually be able to dunk. So one night he came and he lowered it by 6 inches, and the next day we played and we dunked like crazy, and the whole day all we did was slam that thing in every single way that we could. And we said, you know, we felt great and it was wonderful, and it was really all just about lowering the hurdle to getting to a place where you can be successful, getting to a place where you can safely place implants. And this story has caught fire. And yeah, you can feel it. We had Dr. Joe Blaze in here recently, and he noticed that, you know, you can feel the energy behind that, because people want to do more. They want to do better for their patients, and the technology just lowers that net 6 inches so that everybody can kind of
right. And it's Tarun will attest, when he started to do more,
here we go,
it was on less patients.
Yes, absolutely.
And it lowers the stress in the office as well. Every dentist knows they'd rather do 10 crowns on one patient than 1 crown on 10 patients. How have you seen your practice change?
You know, Mike, we talked about this yesterday at our meeting with the Patterson folks, and I shared how our practice is transformed slowly over time. And, you know, the analogy I like to use is, I want to have a wonderful work day working on wonderful patients in a stress-free environment. And I can do an implant procedure, or I can do 20 MODs. So I prefer to do an implant procedure. My patients wake up or they get up out of the chair and they give me a hug and they say thank you. And I'm yet to find a patient to say thank you after I give them a buccal pit.
That must be pretty painful. They won't even thank you after that. Poor guy. Roddy, yeah, Josh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think one of the things we've done in conjunction with Sirona, because the dental community has to see it to believe it, we've held some 3D summits where we bring dentists in, and throughout the course of a day teach them about the products and services that are available, but most importantly, show them a live surgery. And, you know, we do a live surgery, we beam it into the auditorium where we are, and that way they can see it from start to finish in real time, and that it is actually an hour procedure, and it's not a gimmick. So I feel good about that. We continue to have those all across the country, and they fill up very fast, and they're successful for both of us.
Yeah. Well, Roddy, you know, a lot of people know the CEREC technology because of being able to restore smiles, we'll say crowns or veneers or something like that. But there's now a possibility to do it in a much more conservative fashion with the introduction at the end of this year of CEREC Ortho. Tell me a little about that.
Sure, Mike. At the recent American Association of Orthodontists in May, we introduced what we called a work-in-progress software, which was really the CEREC Ortho software, where we're getting started with entering the field of orthodontic dentistry, which is, as you say, very conservative. It's not only for orthodontists, it's also be positioned towards general dentists as well. And the idea behind it is to take full arch scans with the OmniCam, and with those scans then do model storage. It was the most amazing thing. When we asked orthodontists and GPs doing ortho, what would you like to have a digital impression in camera for? They said, number one is storing the models digitally. We want to get rid of these models. And the second thing was we have some patients, typically younger, who can't always have a comfortable experience when taking a physical impression. So we'd like to have a camera because we see that that would be more comfortable for the patient. And the other thing is we'd like to offer a unique experience to our patients. So using a digital impressioning camera would provide them with this unique experience. So when we designed how that product would work, we started with, okay, how do we make full arch scans in the most efficient way possible? And we've got a guided scanning technique to kind of guide the dentist on how to take a full arch scan so that it's accurate, it's consistent, it's predictable, it's reliable. And then from that scan, we have obviously model storage, whether it's right on the machine or whether it's on the practice network. And then we have an integration with Dolphin, which is the #1 orthodontic imaging and practice management software in the industry today. In addition to that, we have connection to ClearCorrect, so an aligner therapy, and also a connection to our Sirona Connect network, which allows the dentist to connect to any orthodontic laboratory in the United States, and also some certain companies like DreamGuard, for example, who are offering night guards and so on from those that can be made up from those orthodontic scans. So there's a lot of options in that will be available by the end of the calendar year.
Well, it's nice to hear the term guided scanning, because I think for people who are new to taking digital impressions or have just gotten into it, that the prospect of doing 2 full arch impressions might sound a little daunting. So the idea of it having the software guide you through it sounds pretty awesome. In fact, let's take a live look at that. Adam, if you're ready, we'd love to see what the guided scanning looks like.
Sure. First of all, I'm just going to jump right into the scanning process here. And first, what you're going to hear are you should hear some audible cues. And of course, live TV, you always have some minor hiccups. But you'll have the audible cue that gets you started here. And what I'm going to do is an occlusal sweep around to the end of this arch. And at the end, you're going to hear a couple of other clicks. And this is going to begin that guided scanning technique. So you can see that it created that red arrow that I'm just going to follow back to my starting point. So it's telling me exactly where it wants me to go. As soon as I hit that red dot, it's going to bring me around to the centrals. So it's telling me throughout every part of this scanning process exactly where I need to be. And as I cross the midline, it's intuitive enough to know that I crossed that midline, and clinically, you want to turn the camera around. So it gives me a start point in the posterior of the opposite arch, so I can move directly forward to that midline area again and complete my scan. And then the greatest addition to this, in a lot of people's estimation, is the ability to do dual buccal bite scans. And what that means is you would take a buccal bite on one side, and it would automatically correlate the model on the other side as well. So back to you guys.
Well, it doesn't get much easier than that, does it?
That's the whole idea.
And the neat part is, you know, if you're going to gag a patient with an impression, it's not going to be from a little double arch tray for a single unit crown. It's those kind of messy, full arch, maxillary alginate impressions where it's running down onto the vocal cords. James, this could really provide a high-tech alternative and allow you to present yourself as a high-tech orthodontic provider. I know you've done ortho for a while.
What I like about I've had a chance to play with the software for a little while, and what's nice about it is very predictable, and it's very fast. And I find that it's been set up so you can delegate it. My team can do as well as I can, and I just don't see optical or distortions as you would see possibly with traditional impressions. So from that standpoint, it's made it much more predictable, and it's fast. We're talking 5 minutes for your records. You hit a button, and it goes to the lab of your choice or to ClearCorrect.
And I'm sure that your patients are pretty happy that you're not having to use alginate anymore.
It's always amazing. I think the perception of the camera, the wow factor, has always been positive, particularly with OmniCam. It's been tremendous. I can take images in the mouth with OmniCam. It has such a small footprint where sometimes I can't even get that with a traditional impression, and it's not uncomfortable for the patient, which makes our day better. And I call it the joy factor. It's joy and it's proven. And so I think it makes us all better. And in the long run, it gives and provides better dentistry for our patient. We're giving back a better care.
And this is one of the procedures, kind of like no-prep veneers, where patients are coming in off the streets asking for it. They've seen clear aligners advertised on TV. They want this type of dentistry. They don't necessarily want to have brackets and arch wires on there. So it really gives us the opportunity to give patients something that they're asking for, almost by name.
Yeah, I think 5 years ago, with the explosion of the digital impressioning market, you know, clinicians would say, well, you know what, you still need PVS. You still got to take those PVS impressions because the digital impression system just doesn't work in all situations. I think with this new software, with the guided scanning, with the OmniCam, I mean, I see the death of PVS pretty close now. I mean, I don't really see a reason why we would need to take PVS impressions for ortho ever again, because you have the accuracy with the camera system. You have the double buccal bite, which gives you great occlusion. I mean, you guys saw the demo, how easy it was to scan. Granted, that's on a model, but, you know, in the mouth, what I found, and I think you guys will agree with me, that it's actually easier to scan teeth, because that's what the camera was designed to scan, was scan teeth, not necessarily plastic. And so I am predicting that in the future, we will absolutely not need PVS for any clinical situations.
From a technology perspective, the guided scanning technique was an important innovation for Sirona to bring to the market. When we saw that for orthodontic application, you always started with a full arch scan, which is fundamentally different from the prosthodontic situation where you start with a partial arch scan. But for orthodontics, you need this full arch scan, and what we saw was there's a great, and you guys might find this surprising, but there's a great variability between clinicians in impression-taking technique, and that's no slur of any kind. That's more like what you see with patients. Many times you see patients brush extremely well on one side, but when they get to the other side of the arch, it's different. It's not the same. It's not. They've gotten bored. They're now watching TV, checking a test. I don't know what they're doing, but you see great variability even on the arch. And we saw this with scanning. We saw that dentists have the habit of concentrating on certain areas of the jaw and then moving to another area and kind of like not putting as much effort or energy or time into it. And we saw, okay, that kind of variability won't work to provide a consistent result in the software and in the outputting product. So this is why we came
Roddy,
up with that scanning
if I can
technique.
take this home, what you're trying to say is it takes an average clinician like me, makes me exceptional.
It takes exceptional dentists and puts them into the stratosphere.
But seriously, as educators, particularly since the OmniCam has been out, I have seen clinicians come in with various aptitudes, and they have taken it to a high level very quickly. So thank you.
Yeah, that's the whole idea behind it.
James, how dare you hone in on my average dentist territory?
I mean, come on.
We'll grab some Patterson CEREC specialists, prep some teeth, and we'll find out who's average right now.
When did you even get to average?
We'll find out. I clawed my way up there from below average over the last 13 years. All right, we've got some questions from the live press corps that's watching. This first one's not addressed to Josh, but I'm going to ask Josh anyway. What about the competitive landscape? Why should a dentist invest or purchase from Sirona and Patterson?
That's a great question. I mean, the first thing is I think it's great that there's competitive products on the market. It only proves that this is where dentistry is going and that CAD/CAM is here for the future and will be a part of dentistry. I think as a consumer, the dentist needs to really think about a couple factors when making the decision. What products have been around a long time? This product's been around 29 years. It's got a history of innovation, and it's a market leader, and that's something that I look for when I make a purchase as a consumer. The second one would be, what's the support structure going to be like after I make the purchase? And we feel like we have the best support network in the industry to be able to help the dentist succeed long-term with it. Also, I would think about what's the reliability of the product long-term. What do they do? This has got a great track record. There's been different iterations of the technology. We had RedCam, we got BlueCam, we got Omni, we've got innovation in software, we got the capability to do implants, all the things that go with it. And to me, those are the things you want to look for. You don't want to necessarily buy the first product on the market, but you want to look at what does the technology going to do for your practice. And I'm open, and I know all the Patterson team that are here. Listen, we won't shy away from sitting down with a dentist and knee to knee and having a conversation about what this can do for their practice. So the technology's out there. Competition is good, and we're happy to have it because it causes people to think about what am I going to do in my practice differently, and we're excited for it. So
That's great. This next question's from Kevin Henry with Advanced Star Dental Media, my good friend. What up, Kev? Could you discuss how the upgrade will also benefit the assistants and other team members working with the CEREC? I'll let you guys fight it out for that one.
Oh, I think we've kind of addressed it before that the whole process is now easier. I mean, you have the ability to turn the camera over to your team and say, scan it, and there's visual cues and the acquisition hints that tell them whether they capture that information or not. The scanning's never been easier. There's no reason that a team member shouldn't be scanning.
So you just hand them the wand and say, scan it. That's your interpersonal skills.
That would pretty much scan it. That would,
and they will be able to get it done.
Or you will fire.
I'm still dealing with this emotionally, but Roddy just told me that I can be idiot-proof now.
This next question is from Jeff Gordon at Aegis Communications, and he writes, can you talk about the ROI of the CEREC system chairside versus the traditional method using the lab for a full implant case, such as the one Dr. Puri mentioned?
I just did some numbers. I've been in the industry just barely over 9 years. I counted that to $1.2 million of lab savings. And I didn't get it for that reason, because I support our labs. But I think the point is it's a no-brainer decision, because if you use it, which it's really easy to use now compared to 9 years ago, the finances of it becomes a no-brainer. I have never seen anything. I've never had a better investment in my practice.
T-Bone, do you have a feeling for that on a single implant case?
I'm dying to answer the question, to be honest with you.
All right, well, let's move to Sam.
No, I really want to.
Do you have to finish this letter, or are you going to answer it?
Hey, why are you after me? Just because I'm semi-bald like you? Come on, leave me alone here. This is near and dear to my heart, okay? So here's what it takes for me to do a case from start to finish, okay? It costs me $50 to produce a CEREC guide and materials. I use a name brand implant, and I believe in name brand implants. We use $350 for a name brand implant. My tie base cost me $90, and my EMAX abutment block cost me $75. So if I do the math on that, we're right at $580 from start to finish to plan, place, and restore. But I want to drive this point home. It's not just plan, place, and restore. It's ideal, close to perfect as possible. And on a procedure that the average cost is somewhere in the $3,500 to $4,000 ballpark, one restoration nets you a gross margin of about $3,000. I mean, the return is quite simple on this, from my perspective.
I think you're looking at hard numbers, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. But what we're leaving out here is, what about the cases that now you can do with ease, and if you have the full integration with the Conebeam system, that you can present the cases. There's a lot of doctors that aren't able to, and I hate to use the word, to sell dentistry, but when I can take a Conebeam scan and I can show them, hey, here's your missing tooth, here's how we're going to place the implant, and now go through the process, those are cases that you may not even be able to do if you didn't have the technology. So that's a huge ROI.
Hey, as one of the non-clinical members of the team up here, you can't place the value on having to go to a different office. And I think T-Bone talked about it. As a patient, you love going to one place. You love having that relationship with that one person and having the treatment done by somebody that you've trusted. And I don't know what the value of that is. To me, it's hard to find that number.
And if T-Bone ever starts an implant company, I know it's going to be called Name Brand Implants.
Absolutely.
That'll be the actual name of it. Roddy, as we wrap things up here, I'd be remiss if we didn't spend a second just talking about what's sure to be a fantastic celebration. One only has to think back to 2012, to CEREC 27.5, and what an absolute blowout and great time that was. Educational as well. But next year we have CEREC 30 coming up, a celebration of all this technology. Tell me a little more about that.
Sure, Mike, thanks. I think a lot of people have commented about our various anniversaries over the year, the 20th anniversary, the 25th, 27.5, where we launched the OmniCam, and they never cease to remark about the atmosphere and the feeling that they get from these events. And it's actually not the event itself. It's the people who are at the event. Yeah. And so we talked a little bit earlier about dentists yearning to do more and to be more as individuals, as professionals, as an industry. And I think that these events bring exactly that group of people together, people who are yearning to do more, yearning to be more. So if you're one of those dentists and you're looking for a home amongst others who feel and believe the same things, these events are exactly that kind of location and family that you'll find. And so We're going to do the exact same thing at CEREC 30. We're going to go back to Las Vegas. We're going to be back at the Venetian, and CEREC30th.com is the website. And I would encourage anybody to look into it. And you don't need to just be a CEREC customer. You can come as a general dentist and feel the passion.
Yeah.
It's open to team members.
It's open to team members. It's open to everybody. And I would encourage dentists. I think sometimes these big events are seen maybe as sales events primarily. And at times there's stuff that is sold, but that's not what this one is. This is a celebration of this technology. I don't think I've seen a grassroots movement quite like the CEREC movement in dentistry, really in society almost, but in dentistry with CERECdoctors.com, there's this family of people willing to give their time, show you their cases, show you their mistakes, answer your questions, be there to support you. So you're not alone in a physical sense, but you got Patterson supporting you. But even online in a clinical sense, you're never alone because of what you can find on 100%. Something like CEREC Doctors. And this is really just the live version of that, where all these people come together and do that same type of thing with a bunch of themed parties as well. So it's fantastic. There's humor there. There's great breakout sessions. I'm sure it's going to be more fun than it was for 27 and a half.
We're going to have a great time. And everybody's
expecting a great time. I heard they got you as a speaker as well. Good to hear you weren't taken on that date. I hear that you were available. All right. Well, on behalf of my esteemed panel, Sirona and Patterson, I'd like to thank you for your time and your continued commitment to quality dentistry. We'll see you next year at Technology Summit 2015.